Hi there, Malcolm here with my 328th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you a review for The Far Side Gallery Volume 1 by Gary Larson. Oh, it doesn't say Volume 1, but it is the first of... Anyway. And this, weirdly, I'd never noticed before, I've read this many times, has at the top cartoons from The Far Side, Beyond the Far Side, and In Search of the Far Side. Which I believe the individual ones are much smaller, they're either rectangular or small square ones. And we do have a couple of the smaller ones knocking about, but this collection combines those three. And for those who don't know, Gary Larson is a cartoonist, best known for greetings cards, and probably his most famous one is the one with the airplane that's just taking off, and there's a frog that's shot its tongue up and stuck to the underside of the airplane and taking off with it. I see that virtually everywhere. And this basically collects a whole bunch of his cartoons, which either consist of single panels, 4 to a page, or 1 to a page, and then you've got a bunch of insects. Watching a horror film at the cinema, Turn of the Killer Windshield. And indeed, a lot of his humour is to do with role reversals. So there's one with a lady leaving the chicken coop with a basket full of eggs, go back to her house, and she passes a chicken coming from the house carrying her baby. Now, there's some spider beings, and the kids are scaring their mum with a joke human on the end of a bit of string. That sort of thing. But he also does the surreal and the bizarre. Oh, I quite like this one, which reads, "Hello Emily, this is Gladys Murphy up the street. Fine, thanks. Say, could you go to your window and describe what's in my front yard?" Love it. And then the outright really bizarre, which is right next to it. Late at night and without permission, although I'm not quite sure how you would get permission for this one, Reuben would often enter the nursery and conduct experiments with static electricity. Now, like with a lot of jokes, you either get them or you don't, or you find them funny or you don't, and I know that Gary Larson is a bit of a Marmite, licorice type comic. You either think his stuff's great and hilarious, or you just don't get it at all, which is fine. You're allowed to be in either park. For me, I certainly chuckled my way through this. Not everyone I found funny, some I just appreciated for being clever. Such as this one, there's no words in this one. There's a bear drinking at the pool, he gets shot by a hunter, and is then stuffed and mounted to make it look like it was a much more ferocious encounter than it really was. No, so there are certain cartoons that do say a lot even without saying anything. There's also pop culture references. So we have a scene from Psycho 3. She's in the shower and he approaches with a tank this time instead of the standard knife, if you didn't know that. And actually on the opposite page, the portrait of Dorian Gray and his dog, with the two presumably being the ones in the garden playing. So you've got films, you've got literature, there are an awful lot of references here. And being an American comedian, I did have a slight disadvantage, is that I didn't always know the characters or scenes that they reference. I'm working my way through Volume 2 at the moment, and they mentioned the OK Corral, which I didn't know. I had to look it up. My wife knew all about it, but said, "Oh, it's on all those Western films." I was like, I haven't seen a Western film for decades. They don't really show them anymore. So you do need to be quite reasonably well read and up with some of the films that are out at the time. It didn't get too bogged down with it. I mean, when was this published? It was first published in '89, so certainly the films it references are more classic. But he certainly likes to spread his interest. So we have cavemen, we have, like I say, role reversals, anthropomorphic animals, a lot of animals actually. There are aliens, robots, explorers. Oh, there's a great one there of aliens just punking a population by going "Yeehaw!" as they just zoom up the high street because they could. Which reminds me of one of my favourite ones. It's just a boardroom and a spider just randomly goes "Yeehaw!" as it swings across the ceiling. I love just imagining that happening in real life. You're sitting there having a meeting and suddenly, whee! Just across the way. Yeah, seeing like things like that. And yeah, another example of role reversal. Guy running to the surf with his surfboard and a gill man running out carrying a wagon. And of course, Gary Larson himself is pivotal in naming the back end of a stegosaurus, the 4 spiky bits at the end of its tail, thanks to this particular gag, where the caveman showing other cavemen a drawing of the back end of a stegosaurus pointing to the tail saying, "Now this end is called the Thagomizer, after the late Thag Simmons." And if you were to look up Thagomizer, it has become the official name for that part of the Stegosaurus. They actually called it that, which is amazing that this silly little gag has become a scientific term used to define the spiky bit at the end of a Stegosaurus. I love that aspect. And the other thing that struck me with this is, it's a kind of reflection of myself, and just, I know I have quite a dark sense of humour. For those who've ever played Cards Against Humanity, even the junior version, yes, it gets quite rude, but it also gets extraordinarily dark. And generally, whenever it's my turn to read out the thing, my family know that the darker they go, the more likely they're going to win that point. And having reread this, having acknowledged the fact that I do have a very dark sense of humour, bloody hell, there's a lot of death in this. This does not shy away from death at all. There are people and things being killed almost every single page. I'll just pick one at random. I mean, you literally have death turning up at these two ladies' doorstep. Now, just wait a minute here. How are you supposed to know you are the real death? Well, this picture says it all. Butterfly just emerged from its cocoon and it's now ensnared. But also quite grim as well. I mean, my goodness, Harold, there goes one great big mosquito. It's literally sucked him dry. But even almost quite casual death. This picture has the caption, "And no one heard from the Anderson brothers ever again." So it doesn't feature death, but death is not that far away. But on the flip side, we have a recent death. You go tell Billy's mother, and I'll start looking for another old tyre. Brilliant. Dark as anything. Final one, I just flipped through. Double page here. There's only 3 gags on it. On another second group, go row, row, row your boat. We're heading towards certain death on a waterfall. You're kidding, I was struck by lightning twice too, as a meteorite comes down to obliterate them. And then with a body in the background, a scorpion saying to their friend on the shoe, just turn it around so I can see it, there I was asleep in this little cave here when suddenly I was attacked by this hideous thing with 5 heads. It's full of death. Someone at the cinema being savaged by a gorilla. And they're just saying down in front. Bobby Henderson brings a severed head in a jar that he found on the beach last summer. I say, they're not all hits, or rather they weren't all hits for me, and I'm sure there's some I didn't find particularly funny that you might. If you haven't tried Gary Larson, give him a go, and do be prepared for being exposed to a very different sense of humour. I think it works if you look at one of the cartoons, and then just try and imagine that being in real life, if that had actually happened. If it wasn't a drawing, if this was a photograph or a short clip of something that really happened that comes up on your TikTok feed or something, just how bizarre it would be if this had really happened and how funny it would be if it would have really happened. But like I say, there's also some very interesting commentary in here as well. There's one where 2 bears find themselves in the middle of a city and one says to the other, well, it's only a matter of time before someone shoots us. So there you go. And the final point, I think, is that Gary Larson looked at his fellow species, as in Americans, not through the kindest of lenses. I struggled to find a good picture for this one. Most of these humans are drawn obese, ugly. On this one, he's eating frog's legs, and that leg's wearing a shoe, presumably referencing some cartoon frog. And just keeping with the theme of death, although that's pretty grim, you got sharks helping themselves to a picnic there. We've got a lost 50-foot snake sign there, a paraglider to get out of the path of a plane, and someone using a brand new pogo stick and ending up going out the window. I absolutely loved rereading this. Again, thought I'd just share a bit of Gary Larson with you. If you haven't already been familiar with him, you might, like I say, you might have seen him on some greetings cards. Feel free to look up about the Thagomizer. Absolutely true. Love it. Booktastic. Highly recommend it if you have a dark, twisted sense of humour like I do. But I do accept that this isn't for everybody. Most of you will probably look at this and go, I don't get it. I think even The Simpsons had Homer Simpson looking through a Gary Larson calendar. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it, was the gag of him reacting to Gary Larson, which I think a lot of you may agree with. So there you go. Have you read Gary Larson? Do you enjoy it, or does it mean absolutely nothing to you whatsoever? And as usual, if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and other YouTubey things if you want. Until next time, stay warm. I'm still freezing.